Hello Universe, Josh here. I wanted to have a look at the word term. Hope this isn't too boring for you all. What is the meaning of the word term? I guess its etymological root is something to do with ending in time. It's a period of time that ends, that has an end. A terminus. I think that's Latin. Thus, a term, in the sense that I'm talking about, is the cutting off of a word, which we normally use in everyday language, and placing a restrictive definition on it. As a term, we put walls around it, and we say that it cannot mean anything more or less than what we have prescribed. It's finished, it's ended. I think this is why it's called a term or an end. It's kind of like cutting down a living tree in order to build a log cabin. A term is also a period of time. However, because it connotes an ending also, a term is a period that has an ending. Unlike time itself, which is theoretically infinite and goes on forever, a term is a closed-off part of time. A term is a word or phrase that has a specific meaning with relation to the text or field of text in which it appears. A term is different from a word because a word's meaning can be found in a conventional dictionary. A term is a unit of jargon, essentially. Jargon consists mainly of terms. Jargon is in fact a term of its own. Term is a term. Terms are used in legal contexts and assign very specific and explicit meanings. A term may have little to do with its dictionary definition, though its meaning is usually logically deductible from its dictionary root to its terminal meaning. Sometimes, though, it may not be deductible without having an end result in mind. Other times, a term's intended terminal meaning can become apparent from the context in which the term appears. Repeated use of a word or term in context grants us greater and greater understanding of the term. In fact, the more a term is encountered, the more meaningful it becomes. However, with most terms, the meaning changes very slowly with thousands of uses. More recent encounters would tend to carry more weight, I would think. However, other terms of encounters may be considered more significant to the meaning of a term. Generally, the dictionary definition would tend to carry a greater weight than other types of encounters. This is because the dictionary definition is specifically designed to create a contextual atmosphere most congenial to deducing the meaning of the term. There's nothing so explicit in learning what a term means that as this means that, or this is an instance of that, whereas in other contexts it may need to be inferred that something is an instance of another thing, or a set of other things. If it is explicitly stated, less logical steps are necessary to place the instance in the set that it belongs to. But the dictionary is only one way to understand a word or term. We say that the dictionary is rich in context, or I just said that, or rich in a meaning-creating atmosphere, because it uses constructions like is and is a kind of. However, we know that the dictionary doesn't always give the meaning we want, or the meaning intended by the author, for the reader to understand. In fact, the dictionary can be the wrong tool for the job in determining meaning in a very technical context, one which uses jargon. There are specialized dictionaries in most fields, or at least analogs to dictionaries, such as glossaries, and these again create an atmosphere of context where it can become abundantly clear what the intended meaning of the term is. Still, in cutting-edge fields, or in places where the author is just plain lazy and neglects to define terms, or where terms are constantly changing meaning, there might not exist a sufficient definition anywhere for a given term, anywhere written down. Another way we might determine the meaning of a term would be the prestige of the context in which it is experienced, or in which its meaning is sought out. That is to say, we are more likely to internalize a meaning gleaned in an educational environment, like a school, than for us, say, for example, a bit of graffiti encountered on the way to school, or on the way home from school. The educational environment would be privileged, and therefore we would assign more weight to that definition than the definition found in the streets. Likewise, when a term is encountered in a legal document, and let us say for argument that it is rigorously defined in that document, then we would tend to privilege that legal meaning of the term, at least as far as that context is concerned. But in other cases, it will not be known which of the many possible meanings a term is supposed to hold. Thus, the weight cannot rest on context-heavy or logic-light atmospheres of dictionaries, glossaries, thesauruses, and technical dictionaries. Instead, the weight must rest on previous contexts, which were similar to the present context. The weight, which will ultimately determine the meaning that the reader decides is correct, will tend towards meanings that have been encountered, not in recent experiences, nor in profound experiences, but in experiences that were most like the present experience of the term. Some terms become diluted with use, or become practically unconscious. For example, the words of, the, said, and be are barely even noticeable by readers, mainly because the words have become very familiar. Also, one of the reasons for these words becoming relegated to somewhat of an unconscious state would be that their meanings tend not to change with each further use. While complex terms could acquire multiple meanings with each use, terms like the really only need to mean one thing. In fact, terms like the and is don't carry meaning in themselves at all. They are merely connectors meant to illuminate the sense of other terms. A word like to say is perhaps a better example. Say is a transitive verb. No one just says. People say things. People say words. People say statements. Or I should say people make statements. But you get what I mean. You get what I mean. People say opinions. People say ideas. But when it is said that he said this or she said that, no one focuses on the word said. It becomes almost invisible. Why is this? Perhaps it's because we have encountered this word so many times that there is no longer any doubt in our minds as to its meaning. At one point it may have been profound, that people are able to say meaningful things, but now we've become dulled to that idea. In fact, we're required to be dulled to that idea in order to be able to glean any value from the things that people actually are saying. Though some words are barely noticeable, they are still very important. Think how hard it would be to read a text with no articles, like and the. However, this is perhaps due to their status as terms of relation. I can think of at least one term of relation that is unfamiliar. Qua means in the capacity of being. I just recently encountered this for the first time. Basically, most things have multiple natures. A man is a man, but he's also a father, a son, a master of a pet, or a driver, a passenger, subject, citizen, worshipper, thinker, actor, actor, agent, environment, like the man's body is an environment. I could go on. Qua is used to delineate what aspect of his nature the author wants us to focus on. Qua, man, qua, subject. After all of this, though, it is important to note that terms aren't necessarily grouped according to their sounding or looking alike. That is, the same word can mean very different things depending on the context. And still the word can occupy two very different places in our mind, it seems. I suppose, though, that this generally applies to the split second in which we encounter the raw sense data, and then go on to interpret it. It is this split second of unsureness that meaning is understood. It is in that split second of unsureness that meaning is understood and internalized. So, in conclusion, though there are a lot of ways to assign different weights to what meaning we apply to a term, I think the most important method for assigning weight is comparing the current encounter, the current atmosphere of the encounter with previous encounters, and seeing how similar this encounter is with the term to others, and that's how we determine what weight to give to the meaning of the term. And hopefully that wasn't super boring.